Shall I start? Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Hammersmith and Fulham's annual council meeting. My name is Councillor Darrell Brown, Mayor of the London Borough of Hammersmith and Fulham. The meeting is being broadcast live on the council's YouTube channel. I would like to remind all participants of a few housekeeping points. Please keep your microphones muted when you are not speaking. Please wait until the Mayor calls on you before speaking, and please keep your cameras on throughout the meeting unless you are having connection issues. I also ask members to keep their speeches brief and to the point. A timer will be in operation and we will indicate when you have 1 minute left and again when your time is up. I now hand over the meeting to the Chief Executive, Kim Smith, for item 1.
Good evening. Good evening, Madam Mayor. We have received apologies for this evening from Councillor Sue Fenimore. I'd like to invite 4 nominations for the office of Mayor for the 2021 municipal year.
Yes, Ms Smith, I propose that Councillor PJ Murphy be elected Mayor of the London Borough of Hammersmith and Fulham for the 2020-2021 municipal year.
Is that formally seconded? Is there a seconder?
Formally second.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations? Councillor Ahern, do the Labour Group agree that Councillor Murphy be duly elected Mayor of the Borough for this municipal year?
Agreed.
Councillor Carmel, does the Conservative Group agree that Councillor Murphy be duly elected Mayor of the Borough for this municipal year?
Agreed.
For the benefit of the recording, does any member wish to vote differently? Councillor Murphy, it is with great pleasure that I formally announce that you have been elected Mayor for the 2021 municipal year, and I offer you the congratulations both of the council and the citizens of the borough. I invite you to make the statutory declaration of acceptance of office.
Thank you. Just for the viewing public, I was just there signing the book, and I'll pop on the mayor's chain. So if you just give me a second.
And then you need to read the declaration.
Councillor Murphy, please make the statutory declaration of acceptance of office as required by the local elections, Declaration of Acceptance of Office, Order 2001.
I, Councillor PJ Murphy, having been elected to the office of the Mayor of London Borough of Hammersmith and Fulham, declare that I take that office upon myself and will duly and faithfully fulfil the duties of it according to the best of my judgment and ability. I undertake to observe the code as to the conduct which is expected of members of the London Borough of Hammersmith and Fulham. I'd just like to kind of make a short speech, if I might, and just say what a great honour it is to be elected mayor, and a great honour really to be elected in what can be described for all of us, I think, as a very difficult year. It's been a year when our community has really suffered, and many of us, unfortunately, have had to grieve. Personally, my younger sister Clodagh died just before the first lockdown, and I many families in Hammersmith and Fulham. Not all of us were permitted to attend her funeral. It meant we couldn't grieve, and it meant we couldn't support each other in the way that we used to. And that, of course, makes her loss all the more painful. A few weeks ago, my elder sister, Bid, lost her husband, David. And whilst we could attend his funeral, the subsequent lockdown and her shielding has meant that, again, we couldn't give her the support that we would have liked. This has exacerbated the pain that she and we feel. And of course, I'm not alone in this. Across this chamber and within our communities, others have been similarly affected. Now, I'd like to take this opportunity to express on behalf of all of the councillors our heartfelt condolences and our sympathy to those that have experienced this pain. To my colleagues on both sides of the council chamber, I do want to reiterate what a pleasure it is and what an honour it is to be elected mayor. All of us, I think, as councillors are proud and humbled to have been elected as local leaders, as local councillors. And at a time when politicians globally are not, you can say, held in the greatest of trust, I think it's incumbent upon us here to demonstrate that we are here to serve our communities and set an example to start to rebuild that trust. As you know, all of our meetings are recorded on YouTube for prosperity. And a simple guide for us, I think, is to simply ask ourselves the question, would I be happy for my loved ones to watch the meeting afterwards, and would they be proud of the way in which I behaved and what I have said? And to help facilitate this pride that people will feel when they observe us, I'd like to just take a couple of minutes to be explicit in how I will chair these meetings in line with our constitution and our code of conduct. I have a list of those who want to speak. If your name is not on that list and you wish to speak, you must indicate this by using the raised hands facilities on Teams. I won't allow any interruptions or people attempting to speak without my permission, and so if you don't use the raised hand facility function, I'm afraid I can't call on you to speak. I expect microphones to be muted unless you've been invited to speak, and therefore no unfortunate barracking will be heard. If you want to indulge yourself with a little bit of barracking, please ensure your microphone is turned off, which will in turn ensure you have an appreciative audience of your good self. I fully expect my decisions to be followed, and if you have any doubts, I refer you to section 27A of our constitution, which states, in relation to the conduct of the meetings of the council and the council's business in relation to the conduct, in relation thereto, the ruling of the mayor as the conduct or application of these rules shall not be challenged. If you're not happy with my rulings, I'm more than happy to discuss with you after the meeting is closed, not during it. And if I'm wrong, I will clarify and apologise at the next meeting. Those of you that know me well know of my love of poetry, and I'm sure for the first couple of meetings as I get into the swing of things, I'll ask you to remember Alexander Pope's wise words, which is to err is human and to forgive divine. I'm sure there's going to be ample opportunities for me to demonstrate my humanity. And when I do, I'd be really grateful if you could demonstrate your divine selves and just cut me a little bit of slack. I'm lucky to have Kim, Coyote and Rihanna all socially distant here to guide me. And as they know just about everything about the Constitution, there is to know about the Constitution, I'll rely on them and them alone for guidance. Naturally, I don't ever want to compel fellow councillors to behave, and I look forward to your help in ensuring that we all have really enjoyable and dignified meetings. I wish to inform you all that I have appointed Hammersmith and Fulham Food Bank as my charity for the mayoral year, and I've appointed Mary Smith to act as my mayoress during the mayoral year. We now move on to the presentation of the Mayor's badge, and I call upon Councillor Stephen Cowan to speak on the presentation of the Mayor's badge.
Thank you, PJ, and thank you for your extremely clear words and indeed uplifting spirit. And I welcome you as the new Mayor and look forward to working with you in that position. I would like to say a very profound thank you to Councillor Darrell Brown. Darrell Brown has been an outstanding representative of the people of the London Borough of Hammersmith and Fulham. When you are elected to office, as PJ said, as the Mayor said, it is a great honour. But to become the Mayor, to become the first citizen of this borough, carries with it a very special role. And you just need to see the excitement of people, whether it's school children or residents in all the different walks of life, who are delighted always to see the Mayor in whatever personage that comes in. And Darrell, born in Ireland, a Hammersmith and Fulham resident most of her life, has been an exemplary representative of this borough. She has undertaken a staggeringly high workload, and both with her partner have gone to so many different events, and the feedback has been so extremely positive. Darrell Brown did what we asked her to do 2.5 years ago, and to make us proud. And with that, I am extremely grateful. On a particular note, I do know when I've worked with the Irish Centre and met many in the Irish community, the pride people had to have a Mayor from that great isle. And that, as we look back at our sometimes tumultuous history, Ireland is without doubt our closest friend. And despite the very difficult challenges being presented to that relationship at the moment through the Brexit negotiations, it remains the case that Ireland should always be like that. So to this borough, to reach out with an Irish-born Mayor has been particularly important over the last 2 years. And I am very proud that every event, whether it was with ambassadors or whether it was with the youngest of school children, Darrell Brown put the right foot forward and did everything she promised to do and made Hammersmith and Fulham proud. Thank you, Darrell, and good luck as Deputy Mayor.
Thank you very much for the nice words.
Thank you, Councillor Cowan. Councillor Darrell Brown, would you like to say a few words yourself?
I would indeed. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and congratulations. First of all, I would like to thank our leader, Councillor Cowan, and all the members in the chamber who nominated me. I'm deeply honoured and was very privileged to be Mayor and to be given the wonderful opportunity to represent the borough of Hammersmith and Fulham. I had a wonderful term and I couldn't have enjoyed it anymore. I would like to first of all thank my husband Benito, 2 daughters, Christine and Karen, my granddaughter Jasmine, who I gave her the title of Mini Mayoress, and Sally and Diana for all of your support. I'd also like to thank my Deputy Mayor, Mercy, and her husband Max, and Alderman Michael Cartwright. I would also now like to thank my chaplain, Vicar Leslie Belinda, for all her support and blessings at each meeting. They are much appreciated. And to our Deputy Lieutenant, Kevin McGrath, for his inspirational and kind words of encouragement throughout my term. I will not forget them. To our MP Andy Slaughter, thank you so much for your kind words and support as well. And thank you to the mayoral team, Leila, Sonny, Owen and Keith. You all do an amazing job. And of course, thank you to Coyote, Rianne, and not forgetting David, for all of your patience and support at each council meeting. I am happy to have supported both of my charities, the Upper Room and Charing Cross Hospital, and wish them all the very best in the future. Keep up the good work. Trying to find my highlights, it was very difficult this evening because, to be honest, every event, every function I attended was a highlight. So it's very difficult, but it's all I have to say is that this is an incredible borough. I'm so proud to be living here. I have met incredible people who give their time and devotion and love to helping others. I'm absolutely loved visiting schools and listening to the little children sing, then visiting residential care homes and chatting with local residents. One particular event when I visited Wormwood Scrubs. That was a truly incredible experience. And also visiting Charing Cross Hospital and meeting patients. And before I bid you, I need to also acknowledge that one of my highlights was visiting cultural centres, particularly the Polish Centre, who invited me on many functions, and also the Irish Centre and the Bavan Centre in my ward. I loved experiencing their culture, their dance and music, and sharing their experiences, and they were always so welcome to me. Before I bid you farewell, I would like to thank Chelsea Football Club for hosting my fundraising events. And thank you to Kim, our Chief Executive, who's just a golden lady, for your dedication and hard work throughout this COVID crisis. We all appreciate your efforts. I know that there are so many people who are maybe listening tonight who I have forgotten, or I have not forgotten you, but I haven't got the time to list you off. You know who you are. For example, Angela Mooney with Linking Hands, etc. I'm so sorry I can't list you all, but thank you so much for all of your hard work. I loved the experience, and have a lovely evening, everyone. And good luck, Mr. Mayor. I hope you enjoy your term. I'm sure you will. Be easy on us.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brown.
Thank you.
That was really quite lovely. And Councillor Andrew Brown, I see you have your hand up. I presume you'd like to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And may I first congratulate you on your elevation to first citizen and mayor of the borough. As many of my colleagues in the Conservative group who have had the privilege of serving as mayor in our form of administration tell me it is a huge privilege. And speaking on behalf of myself, but also the group, we very much want to thank you for taking on the responsibility, not just in the chamber and in the town hall, but also in all the very many functions and events and organisations that you'll support in your term as mayor. I think it's fair to say, Mr. Mayor, that you at times have been a pugnacious speaker on the floor of the chamber. So we look forward to you taking up an alternative role as a referee and umpire for our council meetings instead of a more active participant. But we are very confident that you will do so with great style, aplomb, fairness, and good judgment. Can I also thank you for your, obviously clearly heartfelt words about not just your own very sad loss, of which we of course share our condolences, but also those that have also lost loved ones, both within the chamber this evening, but also across our borough. We do live in one of the most extraordinary times in probably all of our living memories. And I think it's very important that we recognise that as a council, but we also recognise that as individual councillors as well as in our council meetings. Finally, may I add, on behalf of the group and myself, thanks to the outgoing mayor, Councillor Darrell Brown, who, although we may have had a few disagreements about process during her tenure, we've always believed her to be a fantastic mayor. And always, a great representative for our borough and for our council. So thank you very much, both Mr. Mayor and Councillor Darrell Brown.
Thank you, Councillor, and you have my assurance that I will be pugnaciously unbiased. So no worries there at all. I now call upon Councillor Stephen Cowan to give a vote of thanks to the past Deputy Mayor.
Well, it seems an unusual step for us because we won control of the council in 2014 and Mercy became the mayor. And then after that, after Councillor Cartwright, now Alderman Cartwright, became the mayor, she has been deputy mayor, which she has remained ever since. So after a very long stint in representing the borough, she is moving to a different role. And I think possibly has served the longest stint in some form of the morality of any individual in the history of the borough, which goes back many years and in its current form to 1964. Mercy has been regal, she has been noble, and she has been extremely distinguished in the way that she has performed all her roles. Her commitment to this borough has been second to none, which is why she has had such a staggeringly high workload. And both her and Max Ume, who worked as her consorts, along with her two daughters, have gone out of their way to make anyone they met from any persuasion, from any part of the borough, welcome and feel part of this amazing place that we call home in this part of West London. Mercy Ume, I think, was particularly important as a message to everyone in this borough that no matter where you come from or what your background, you can end up at the very most important position as the first citizen of the borough, and then indeed the second citizen of the borough as the deputy mayor. So I am deeply grateful. I'm very, very fond of Mercy. She is an amazing councillor and has, again, as had Daryl and has had Mike, done us very, very proud. Thank you, Mercy, and welcome to your new role.
Thank you. And unfortunately, due to the lockdown restrictions, the past mayor's consort, Max, and Mercy, Mayoress, can't be with us in this room, but we have sent them the past consort's gifts, badge, sorry, and some gifts and appreciation. And on just a very personal note, again, I think a thanks to both Mercy and Max, and thanks to Max for his dancing lessons on his anniversary. Okay, the appointment of deputy mayor, and I wish to inform the council that I've appointed Councillor Daryl Brown to be my deputy mayor for the 2020-21 municipal year, and she has appointed Mr. Benito Brown to act as a deputy mayor's consort. And that brings to an end the ceremonial business, and we'll move into the main part of the agenda. The first part is to have apologies for absence, and I've received apologies for absence from Councillor Sue Fenimore and from Councillor Anne Rosenberg. I can see from the participation list all members are present, except for those who have apologised for their absences. And I'd just like to check, please, are there any declarations of interest at all? Okay, Alex, I have your hand up.
Thank you, Mayor. For the purpose of total clarity, I am a deferred member of the LBHF pension scheme, and the remuneration and so forth could possibly have an effect on that.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor Alford?
I'm a member of the pension scheme.
Thank you very much, and I am as well. Are there any other declarations of interest? Councillor Homan?
Yeah, I am as well.
Okay. Councillor Culhane?
Yeah, I am as well.
Councillor Holden? Okay, I can see a number of names splitting up, so I'm afraid that Councillor Lloyd Harris?
I am also a member of it.
Okay, I believe I saw Councillor Stephen Cowan's hand up.
Yes, I'd similarly like to make a similar declaration.
All right, and are there any other councillors who wish to make a similar declaration? All right, thank you very much indeed. I'll move on to the minutes of the previous meeting held on October the 21st, 2020. Councillor Ahern, do the Labour Group agree the minutes of the meeting?
Agreed.
Councillor Carmel, do the Conservative Group agree the minutes of the meeting?
Agreed.
And for the benefit of the recording, does any member wish to vote differently? move on to item 5, the Mayor's announcements, and I have no announcement to make, so we'll move on to the next item, which is the committee reports, and item 6.1, party appointments for the 2020-21 municipal year. Councillor Ahern, do the Labour Group note the report and the appointments made by the party groups on the council for 2020-21?
Yes.
Councillor Carmel, do the Conservative Group note the report on the appointments made by the party groups on the council for 2020-21?
Duly noted.
Thank you. 6.2, appointment by the leader of the deputy leader and cabinet. Councillor Ahern, do the Labour Group note the report on the appointment of the deputy leader and cabinet members?
Yes.
Councillor Carmel, do the Conservative Group note the report on the appointment of the deputy leader and cabinet members?
Duly noted.
Item 6.3, allocation of seats and proportionality on the committees. I call upon the leader of the council, Councillor Cowan, to move the report and recommendations.
Formally moved, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Councillor Ahern, do the Labour Group note the report and the allocation of seats on the committees?
Yes.
Councillor Carmel, do the Conservative Group note the report on the allocation of seats on the committees?
Duly noted.
Thank you. For the benefit of the recording, does any member wish to vote differently? The recommendations are carried. Item 6.4, appointment of chairs and committee membership. Please be aware that the council is only to note nominations to the subcommittees. The parent committees will make formal appointment of subcommittee membership, except for the licensing subcommittee, which is made by the chief executive. Also, please note the following correction to the report. Councillor Mark Loveday should replace Councillor Matt Thorley on the Standards Committee membership. I call upon the leader of the council, Councillor Steve Cowan, to move the report and recommendations.
Formally moved.
Councillor Ahern, do the Labour Group agree the report and its recommendations?
Agreed.
Councillor Carmel, do the Conservative Group agree the report and its recommendations?
Agreed.
For the benefit of the recording, does any member wish to vote differently? The recommendations are carried. Item 6.5, Members' Allowance Scheme for 2020-21. Revisions. I call upon the leader of the council, Councillor Cowan, to move the report and recommendations.
Formally moved.
Does anybody wish to speak on this item? Councillor Carmel.
Thank you, Mayor. I will be brief. I will not repeat my speech of several years standing. However, there are a couple of points that I would like to add to my standard speech on this subject. I would like to draw your attention to page 48 of the agenda, and indeed the sentence that appears immediately after interpretation of the scheme. It says, and I quote, "We reiterate our view that no more than 50% of councillors should receive a special responsibility allowance." Now, I've spoken on this at some length before, but I note that item 6.6 on the agenda seeks to increase the number of members that receive a special responsibility allowance. Now, maths was never my strong point at school, but I now make it, should item 6.6 be carried, that 31 out of 35 members of the administration, which is equivalent to 88.6% of the Labour group, will now be receiving a special responsibility allowance. Even if you include the opposition group, which has a mere 3 special responsibility allowances, you come up at 73.91% of the council receiving special responsibility allowances, We have an independent panel. They have recommended that no more than 50% should receive special responsibility allowances. We shall be voting against. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carmel. Are there any other speakers? Councillor Culhane.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and congratulations on your appointment. As is, I guess, tradition now, similar to Councillor Carmel, I would like to remind all councillors that since 2014, since we were elected in 2014 and defeated Cameron's favourite council, alongside saving Charing Cross Hospital, Sullivan Primary School, and most recently, the West Kensington and Gibbs Green estates, which were sold off in what can only be the worst public deal in history. We have actually, if you go back through time, seen that we've done 5 times the amount of surgeries than opposition councillors, even when you figure it out on a proportional basis. And it's worth noting at this moment in time, the leader of the opposition does not sit on any scrutiny committees in the council, which is what we think may be the only opposition leader in the history of this borough who has not sat on any opposition. Is not sat on any scrutiny panels. So, and anyone who has listened to the budget speech from earlier this year will see how little effort is going into that work. So I would politely suggest perhaps that before making criticisms, actually the opposition look at themselves.
Thank you. Councillor Brown, I see you have your hand up. Councillor Brown, unfortunately, you're on mute.
Thank you for the technical reminder, Mr. Mayor. As always, as is our annual tradition, Councillor Culhane often uses inaccuracy and frankly nonsense in his response to Councillor Carmel's speech. Just to be clear, since I became Conservative group leader, we carry out more surgeries than the Labour group. If you look into the details of when surgery is available, there are even some members of the Labour group that don't do any walk-in or drop-in surgeries at all and can only be met by appointment only. Obviously, that's slightly irrelevant in this difficult time because we're not able to hold surgeries in person as we would very much like to. I think it's also important to note that when, after the 2018 election and this format of committees was set up, it was the decision of the administration, and as confirmed by the senior officer responsible, that the numbers of opposition councillors was significantly reduced, much more so than on the period from 2006 to 2014. Therefore, if I was to sit on one of the scrutiny committees, one of my colleagues and shadow spokesmen would not be able to, which means it's far more effective for me to liaise with them directly. And can I also note at the times that I have attended scrutiny committees, the chairs, unlike in past years when I sat on the Health and Adult Social Care Scrutiny Committee, ably chaired by Councillor Vaughan at the time, but the chairs of the 2 committees that I have attended have not had shown the courtesy to the opposition to allow the opposition to have a fair opportunity to speak and scrutinise the council. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. There's no other speeches. I'll move on. Councillor Ahern, the Labour group agree the report and its recommendations.
Agreed.
Councillor Carmel, do the Conservative group agree the report and its recommendations?
Surprise, surprise, no.
Thank you. So noted. For the benefit of the recording, does any member wish to vote differently? The recommendations are carried. Item 6.6, review of the Constitution. I call upon the leader, Councillor Cowan, to move the report and recommendations.
Formally moved.
Councillor Ahern, to the Labour Group, agree the report and recommendations?
Agreed.
Councillor Carmel, to the Conservative Group, agree the report and its recommendations?
Mayor, with your permission, I would like the 3 recommendations to be taken in turn, as we have different decisions on each of the recommendations.
Actually, Councillor, we're going to take them together as a group. So I'll ask again, do you agree the report and its recommendations?
With respect, if you could just
with respect, Councillor, I've made my ruling. That's it. So do you agree the report and its recommendations or not? It's a simple yes or no, please.
No, but I will speak to you after the meeting.
Thank you very much. For the benefit of the recording, does any member wish to vote differently? The recommendations are carried. We move on to item 6.7, the Leader's Annual Report. I call upon the Leader of the Council, Councillor Cowan, to address the Council, and Councillor Cowan, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And what can I say about this last year, other than there has been no other year like it? If anyone imagined, even as recently as this time last year, that we would have faced the pandemic, the level of deaths, the level of threat of death, and the economic collapse that our community faces, then it would have seemed surreal. And indeed, it has been surreal. There has been the biggest shock to our country, to the world, and to this borough that I have known in my lifetime, and let alone as an elected politician. In politics, it's often the agenda that you try to push that is the most important thing. But you often find yourself, as Macmillan referred to, responding to events. And we have had some huge events to respond to. So I would like to formally take this moment to thank everybody across the borough for the work they have done to keep our citizens safe. It has been outstanding. As you know, we were the first council to move onto an emergency footing. We were the first council to close our care homes when we realised that that asymptomatic patients were being dumped into them. Ben Coleman led the way in introducing the most effective tracing system in the capital, and what we now have is one of the most effective testing systems in the capital as well. Our officers, many of whom I was working with till 1, 2 in the morning in the early part of the pandemic, have risen to the challenge that would make all of us proud to be a member of Hammersmith and Fulham Council. And that remains the predominant challenge. But as we face that challenge still, then we do so at a time of increased gang crime. We do so at a time of huge cuts to our budget, from £184 million at the beginning of 2010 to, after a decade of austerity, £121 million total budget. Hammersmith Bridge we inherited was rotten and had been negligently cared for, and we are doing our best to get it fixed. But whereas the Laveridge London Council spent £100 million on all its bridges over the last decade, this bridge cost up to £163 million to get fixed, and we desperately need government support. Indeed, it would be quite wrong for the government to ask the citizens of this borough to put their hands so deeply into their pockets when the bridge is important for all of London, particularly people living in barns. So as we face recession, we face business failures, there is unemployment, there is poverty on the increase, the food banks are packed. There is the level of fear amongst our population that I think few of us have known. And so it is for us in this local authority to work across with our partners in all the different services and councils to dispel that fear and provide some hope. And I believe that this council is playing a major part in doing that, whether it's the Hammersmith and Fulham Community Aid Network, the 3,000 citizens who helped, whether it's our amazing officers, the health services and the key workers and our care workers. There is hope in everything they do to keep people safe. But now what we look at with people, even middle class people now, queuing in food banks as they face unemployment, business failure and recession, then the level of economic threat we have known is like something not even in the 80s. And it's for all of us to come together to provide a term and plan that will deal with those very, very serious problems. So as we look forward, I can make one clear promise. We will walk forward with optimism. We will determinedly take on every single challenge. We will always put Hammersmith and Fulham's residents first, and I underline that. And we will make sure we keep people safe, fight for their prosperity, and build the borough that we were elected to build. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Cowan. Councillor Andrew Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and can I thank the Leader of the Council for his speech. You know, it is tradition at annual council that we forego much of the party politics that often dominates our normal full council meetings, and I think in this even more challenging time that we're currently living in, I think it's important for us to reaffirm that tradition. You know, I want to echo the thanks that the Leader of the Council has given to all residents of our borough, not just residents of our borough, but those who work here as well and contribute so much to our citizens' lives, whether it's in our NHS, our schools, our council officers and employees, whether it's those that keep our streets clean and pick up our refuse, or whether it's those that work in our supermarkets and keep the food on our shelves and subsequently on our plates. We all owe an enormous debt of gratitude to those and all those across our borough who contribute so much in this difficult time. You know, there are aspects of this council's administration and record and decisions that, of course, we as the opposition don't necessarily agree with. But what we do agree with wholeheartedly is in our thanks for the officers' direct response to this incredibly difficult crisis that we've been living through, and also from our group to the administration councillors who, of course, have had to take on that burden as the administration of the council, for not just making those decisions, but for making sure that those emergency provisions and policies and actions that needed to be taken to address COVID have been done in a timely and efficient manner. You know, the Leader of the Council made reference to Hammersmith Bridge, and of course, you know, we share residents' frustration with its closure and the situation, as well as those from south of the river. Obviously, it's an ongoing situation, and I believe that the Secretary of State for Transport and the Minister of State for Roads, Baroness Spear, met with the Leader of the Council today to discuss how we can take this forward. It's our position, and we made this clear at the last council meeting, that whilst we agree that the government, as well as TfL, should bear the very significant burden of funding the repair, we also believe it's appropriate for Hammersmith and Fulham to pay a fair and reasonable contribution in line with what other boroughs have contributed to with regard to their bridge maintenance over the last decade or more. There are also issues such as the Sands Hen traffic scheme, another recent pilot being the recycling scheme that we have concerns about and have made representations to, but I'm not going to go into detail in those tonight. But obviously that's something that we can discuss at future meetings. In conclusion, I just want to again add my thanks to all the residents of the borough for what they're doing, and perhaps the most important thing being to stay home and stay safe where you can, and only venture out when absolutely necessary whilst we're in this current lockdown, and obviously to keep yourselves and your family and your community safe even after the current lockdown is lifted, and when we'll go into one form of the tiering system And obviously, we're very much looking forward to the very swift rollout of the vaccines, which will, of course, be a huge step in allowing us to return to normal. Thank you again, Mr. Mayor, for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brown. I move on to item 7, reports to notes. 7.1, the council calendar. Councillor Ahern, do the Labour Group note the report?
Noted.
Councillor Carmel, do the Conservative Group note the report?
Noted.
Item 7.2, annual report on the Policy and Accountability Committees 2019-20. Councillor Ahern, do the Labour Group note the report and its recommendations?
Noted.
Councillor Carmel, do the Conservative Group note the report and its recommendations?
Duly noted.
Item 7.3, Special Urgent Decisions Monitoring Report 2019-2020. I've been informed that 3 councillors wish to speak on this item, so I'll call on Councillor Homan, to speak first. You have 5 minutes, Councillor Homan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. May I firstly congratulate you on your appointment and wish you the very best for the forthcoming year, albeit a very strange year in which to become mayor.
Thank you.
I appreciate that it's unusual to speak on this report. However, it has been a strange and difficult, challenging year for many of us due to COVID-19. And all the evidence shows that it has been especially difficult for women at risk of violence. And I believe that it's really important that today, on the 25th of November, International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women, and with reference to this in this evening's papers on page 123, which relates to the services and support provided by Hammersmith and Fulham to domestic violence victims, that we should take a short while to reflect and to reaffirm this borough's commitment to always stand together with victims. Of course, today is not just about domestic violence, but about all violence against women and girls, whether it be FGM, modern slavery, sexual violence, or many other crimes. But it is domestic violence that I would like to focus on for a few minutes. National charities dealing with domestic abuse have reported a surge in cries for help since the start of the pandemic. According to an investigation by BBC's Panorama in August, 2/3 of women in domestic abusive relationships have suffered more violence from their partners during the pandemic, and 3/4 of victims also say lockdown has made it harder for them to escape their abusers. During the initial stages of COVID-19, Refuge, the national refuge charity, reported a 50% increase in demand to its helpline and a 300% increase in visits to its National Domestic Abuse Helpline website. Demand has spiked again recently, with calls to the helpline going up by an average of 66% every week, and to the website where women can request a safe time to be contacted by a phenomenal 950% compared to pre-COVID-19. The Office of National Statistics showed that last year 2 women a week are still killed by a current or former partner in England and Wales. And I'm sure that we're going to just dread hearing what the next set of statistics will be. As we know, COVID came on the back of austerity, when local government has overall seen 38% cuts to their budgets since 2010. That's around 16 billion in core funding from central government. And one of the services often squeezed is the support for women fleeing domestic violence. In 2018, The Guardian found that the majority of local authorities across England, Wales and Scotland had slashed their funding for refugees for vulnerable women and children. And in 2019, the charity Refuge said that it experienced 80% of cuts to some of its services since 2011. However, demand for services still outstrips supply, and there's an average of 400 survivors of children being turned away from refuges every week. I'm pleased to be able to say that despite this, in Hammersmith and Fulham, we've maintained a high level of service via our strong partnerships with the voluntary sector, who I want to thank for years of unflinching dedication. Working together with them and other boroughs, we're fully committed to maintaining service in the future. And as many of you will know, we have a strong track record of being at the cutting edge of service provision, such as being the first borough to have a specialist domestic violence court.
You have 30 seconds left.
Not only does today mark International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women, but it also marks 16 days of activism against gender violence. Hammersmith and Fulham are fully committed to this, and I'm glad we have had the opportunity to recognise this tonight. And despite all the pressures facing this council, we recognise that this is a particularly time for those at risk of domestic violence, and we will continue to be fully committed to whatever we can do to support women in our borough. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor Layton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and may I also begin by congratulating you on your appointment. Thank you for the opportunity to speak on this important issue this evening on what is International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women. As members will know, this UN initiative was created 20 years ago to encourage governments and NGOs to work together to eradicate violence against women. Here in the UK, ending violence against women and girls is a matter for all of us. Red or blue, Hammersmith or Fulham, young or not so young. Domestic violence could be taking place on any street in any ward across our borough. Although we may not realise it, all of us here tonight will know someone who has been or is currently a victim of domestic violence. Mr. Mayor, I think it's important that members are aware that in 2019, 1.6 million women aged 16 to 74 experienced domestic abuse. Almost 1 in 3 women aged 16 to 59 will experience domestic abuse in their lifetime. And on average, police in England and Wales receive over 100 calls relating to domestic abuse every hour. And we know that these figures are sadly just the tip of the iceberg. Domestic abuse is often a hidden crime that goes unreported to the police. According to the Crime Survey for England and Wales, only 18% of women who had experienced partner abuse in the last 12 months reported it. Mr. Mayor, this year, the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women is more important than ever, as Councillor Homan has already said. While 2020 has been defined by COVID-19, there has been another shadow pandemic going on behind closed doors. The UN report that since the outbreak of COVID-19, all types of violence against women and girls, but particularly domestic violence, has intensified and increased. COVID-19 did not create domestic abuse. Those that commit these acts in the home are responsible for their own actions. Nevertheless, national lockdowns have worsened violence and coercive control in the home for women, as perpetrators of domestic violence are using government restrictions to further control and isolate their partners. Research from Women's Aid shows that 67% of those currently experiencing domestic violence report that it has got worse since the start of the pandemic. As a consequence of being forced to spend more time with their abuser, many women live in constant fear. While the government has made clear that those at risk of harm can leave their homes, women are increasingly finding it difficult to access their support networks and seek help. Furthermore, women's refuges are struggling to find space for women as demand for their services has increased. And unfortunately, the impact of the last decade of austerity has meant that charities are not in the strong position that they need to be to support survivors of domestic violence. The situation for women who are experiencing domestic violence as I speak is serious. But there are actions that we can all take on this, and I would encourage anyone listening to find out more about the International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women and the actions we can all take to stand with survivors of violence. We can all believe women and listen to survivors. We can all empower the next generation by teaching them about consent, bodily autonomy, and women's rights. We can all learn about the signs of abuse and how we can support those at risk to find safety or support. We can all hold each other accountable. Violence against women and girls finds its origins in a society that still sees women as lesser than men. We can all take a stand by calling out harassment in the workplace and in public settings, including catcalling, inappropriate sexual comments and sexist jokes. And we can all call on the government to adequately fund local authorities and charities so we can support every woman at risk of domestic violence. Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So sorry.
Thank you, Councillor Layton. I call on Councillor Holden to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And can I congratulate you on your appointment too? In solidarity with women all over the world, I too want to give my support to today's International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women and Girls, and say any further delay in reviewing this borough's violence against women and girls services only adds to the growing international concern most women and men have with this topic. UN Women say 1 in 3 women and girls experience physical or sexual abuse by a partner. Globally, 58% of women are killed by a partner or family member. And according to UNICEF, 15 million adolescent girls worldwide aged between 15 and 19 experience forced sex at some point in their life. Worldwide problems that women and girls also experience right here in the UK. And boroughs like Hammersmith and Fulham need to renew its focus on the elimination of violence against women and girls because it happens right here on our doorstep. During the COVID-19 crisis, there has been a significant increase in online violence against women and girls. Many of us don't fully understand or comprehend the range of violent abuses women and girls experience, like rape, FGM, child abuse, coercive control, honour-based violence, economic, emotional and sexual abuse, pornography, prostitution, and yes, even human trafficking. And while studies show 4 in 5 trafficked women and girls are trafficked for sexual exploitation, prosecutions for these crimes in the UK have gone down, as has a number of those charged and convicted for rape since 2017, down by 34.4%. Monitoring the effectiveness of this borough's services in the context of such an ineffectual national violence against women and girls strategy made the necessity of the decision in 7.3 imperative. As a sovereign service, it will be a priority for this administration to work more closely with victims of violence and against women and girls and take a bolder stance against all violence. This sovereign body will aim to make future services more robust and more effective for users. The contract for these services ended in March 2019. I think we know and appreciate in part some of the reasons why, unfortunately, a review could not take place earlier. Nevertheless, this is now the final year in which current service arrangements will continue for the foreseeable future. Thank you, Mayor, for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Councillor Holder. Councillor Andrew Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and can I first thank the 3 previous speakers who I feel all spoke brilliantly on this very important and difficult and upsetting subject. I think it's very important and welcome that we recognise this International Day Against Violence Towards Women, and it's something that I support wholeheartedly. The efforts that the council are doing to protect all vulnerable women and girls in our borough who are subjected to violence of any kind. It is something that is truly abhorrent to me and to us as a Conservative group, and it's something that we will fully support the administration any way we can, to do whatever we can to stamp this out amongst our residents. One of the speakers spoke about how some people choose to commit these acts because they believe that women to be weaker, and I'm not criticizing what she said, because I think she spoke very well, but I think the perspective that I have is that anyone who perpetrates an act such as this, they are the ones that are weak. It's through cowardice and weakness that individuals resort to something like this. And for every woman or girl who is abused in any way, is someone's daughter or mother or wife or child or sister, and anyone that perpetrates that is in many ways inflicting that awful abuse on effectively their own wife or mother or daughter or child, and it's frankly absolutely abhorrent. So in summary, I just want to thank the administration for its efforts on this regard, and also those three exceptionally powerful speeches, which were far more eloquent than my own. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. I see there's no more speakers. So, Councillor Ahern, do the Labour Group note the report?
Noted.
Councillor Carmel, do the Conservative Group note the report?
Duly noted.
Item 7.4, petitions, monitoring report 2019 to 2020. Councillor Ahern, do the Labour Group note the report?
Noted.
Councillor Carmel, do the Conservative Group note the report?
Duly noted.
Thank you. Well, we come now to the end of the meeting, and as you know, it's tradition in the good old days that we'd go to the Mayor's chamber and celebrate together. But unfortunately, because of COVID, of course, we can't. So I think I'll just take it on trust that tonight a few people will be enjoying themselves and having a great evening. All right. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you for attending, and I wish you all a fantastic Christmas as well. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Merry Christmas.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.